Okay, sorry about that, folks. I had to restart the stream. I'll wait. There's nobody on yet. I'll have to wait for. Oh, we got one person on. I'll wait for a couple of minutes here and let people find the stream again. I made a mistake and killed the stream instead of starting it. Okay, we've got a few people who have found it. Just wait for a few minutes more. Okay, we got 11 people. I think there was before that was pretty close to that. So we pretty much got what we got, I think. Oh, 17 people. Okay. Yeah, I think we got the crew is found. People are pretty quick. Sorry about that. I messed up the video feed, and when you make a mistake, YouTube doesn't let you correct it. You have to exit the stream and start over. So, okay. So we'll start. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Okay, so last week I talked about the theories of space and time in Buddhism, and I thought I would continue with that theme somewhat today and look at time from another angle, from the Buddhist concept of cosmic time and the cycles of existence. Before I get into that, I make a note about the thumbnail today. It was a bit of fun. I went on to a website that does AI generated art, and I asked for Mountain on Fire, and for some reason I put those chairs in, and I thought, oh, that's okay, that looks good. So pull up one of those comfy chairs and sit down, and we'll talk about the end of the world. No. So the world system in the Theravada cosmology is called the Chakrawala. That includes the Mount Sindaru in the middle, and then the ring mountains, the seas, and the islands upon which beings live. We live on Jambudipa, the southernmost island. And these Chakrawalas are infinite in number. They're spread out in all directions. But each individual Chakrawala is finite in its lifespan. It has a beginning and an end, while samsara as a whole does not have a beginning or an end. There's a constant recycling of these world systems at a very big time scale. The whole life cycle of a world system is called a Mahakapa. And a Mahakapa is said cannot be measured or easily expressed in years or thousands of years or hundreds of thousands of years. And the Buddha wouldn't put a number on it, but he gave a number of similes to show how incredibly long a Mahakapa is. He said if you had a block of solid granite, a yojana on a side, and a little bird flew by once every 100 years and brushed it with his tail feathers, that block of granite would wear away to nothing before the end of the world. So we're talking about very long time scales. But the world does come to an end, and there is a even bigger cycle of a sequence of ways in which the world ends. It goes through 64 Mahakapas, and it cycles between fire, water, and wind. So there'll be 7 destructions by fire, then 1 by water, and then that 7 and 1 that repeats 7 times, and then the 8th time, wind is replaced. Water is replaced by wind. So once in every 64 Mahakapas, the world is destroyed by wind. So our current world age is one that's going to be destroyed by fire. And what is supposed to happen is that the sun will multiply itself. And there will be 2 suns in the sky, then 3, then 4, up to 7. And each time the heat on the earth will increase and continually heat the earth, destroy all the vegetation, kill all the living beings, and dry out the oceans and the lakes and rivers. And then finally the world will all burst into flame. And the flame will be so all-consuming that it burns up even Mount Sindaru, and nothing is left, not even ash. It's completely eliminated. There's a Thai text, The 3 Worlds According to King Rune, which was a medieval book about cosmology, and it's got some colorful details in there that aren't found in the original Pali. One of them says that when all the oceans dry out, the corpses of the giant sea monsters that live in the sea the oil in their bodies will be what ignites and causes the fire that burns up the world. So then this occurs, and the world is completely empty, and it remains empty for a long period of time. There's no existence in that where that world system was. It's just empty space. But the force of the karma of all the beings that died in the end of the world still remains, and that force of that collective karma is what generates the new world coming into existence. And the world comes back, new worlds are created as places for beings to exist. And the world reappears from the top down. So the highest heavens appear first, and then gradually the middle heavens and the lower heavens, and finally the earth, where human beings and so forth are. And then there's another cycle that goes on with humans. During the whole Mahakapa, there are 20 smaller periods called Antarakapas. And these refer to the life of humans, which cycles between a maximum lifespan of 80,000 years to a minimum lifespan of 10 years. And we're currently in a declining cycle. And when it gets down to 10 years, humans basically reverted to an animal-like existence, and they're killing each other. And there'll be at the very bottom, there's a period called the sword days, where there'll be just people will go into a frenzy and just be killing each other helter-skelter. And there'll only be a few survivors, and the survivors hide, and then they come out of hiding and they meet each other and they say, why don't we stop killing? And so they take a promise not to kill. And just by picking up that much morality, like taking one precept, they begin to have longer lifespans, and then their lifespans keep increasing generation by generation until they reach 80,000 year lifespan. and then they become corrupt and they start losing their morality and their lifespan begins declining again. So there's a rising and declining cycle for humans that occurs 20 times in a Mahakapa. And then the world goes through its whole existence again and comes to another ending. And as I said, 7 times it'll be destroyed by fire. And then the 8th time is destroyed by water. There'll be deluges of rain that don't stop, and they'll flood the whole world system, and it will release the caustic waters that are under the earth, which are like very, very alkaline waters that will dissolve everything, like powerful lye, and just dissolves everything, and everything is dissolved and consumed in the water. And the destruction by wind, which is the rarest destruction of all, which occurs only once every 64 times, there'll be great winds, and each of these destructions includes a larger field. It engulfs more world systems, more surrounding world systems. They all go down together, and the wind destruction is the widest spread, and it pulverizes everything, and it reaches the point where the Mount Sinarus of each world system are floating around in space, crashing into each other, and everything is reduced to dust, and then the dust crashes into each other, and it's completely atomized, and there's nothing left. And again, the world is empty and starts again. Now, there's a couple of angles I want to approach this from. A couple of interesting parallelisms in this system. One is to meditation and development of the jhanas. That this has been pointed out by, beginning with Buddhaghosa really, but some modern writers have written on this as well. That because as we know that the 4 levels of Brahma gods correspond to the 4 jhanas, and each kind of destruction of the world system reaches up higher into the jhana worlds. So destruction by fire burns up the earth and all the heavens up to the first Brahma world. That's also destroyed. The destruction by water reaches up to the second Brahma world. And the destruction by wind reaches up to the third. The fourth Brahma world is never all destroyed at once. So it's not consumed in any of these cataclysms. Now, the parallelism here is that the first jhana includes the mental factors of Vitakka Vichara, which are applied and sustained thought. So there's still thought formation present in first jhana, and fire is compared to thought formation in that it's very busy, and hot, and so it reaches up to first jhana, but it can't reach any higher because there's no thought formation higher than that. Then the second jhana level is marked by piti or rapture, which is compared to water, and we see analogies that the Buddha used to talk about piti as water rushing up from below in a mountain lake. It's like the piti rushing up in your body. So that there is a feeling with piti of kind of a liquid feeling. So the destruction by water reaches up to the second jhana level, and the destruction by wind goes all the way up to the third jhana level, And the explanation given for that is that the breath ceases in fourth jhana. So that's also a another whole topic. The Visuddhimagga claims that you stop breathing altogether in first jhana or fourth jhana, and you take your air in through the pores of the skin. But whether that's physiologically true or not is certainly debatable. It may be that just the conscious awareness of breath ceases altogether because you're so disassociated from the body at that point. But in any case, the comparison with the destruction by wind is that wind can't reach to fourth jhana, so it doesn't reach to the level of the fourth Brahma gods either. So we have these cycles compared to the jhanas, you know. And it's like as you progress through the jhanas, you're eliminating factors, so that it's like an end of that world. You know, the thought formation ceases when you leave first jhana and go to second. So it's like that whole realm no longer exists for you at that point. But jhana also, we could add that jhana is also a temporary state. So you reform, the world systems reform after the destruction. And I think that's also worth commenting on, this destruction and reformation. This is a big difference, I find, in the view of time and cosmological history between East and West. And I would include, for this purpose, I would include Persia as part of the West. Like everything west of the Indus River is West, and then India, China is East. In the West, there has always been a eschatological view of time, or teleological view, meaning that there's a direction, there's a beginning, there's a history that has meaning, and it comes to some kind of conclusion, often a big apocalyptic battle between good and evil. And we see that in many systems, not just Christianity, but Islam, Zoroastrianism, even pagan religions like the Norse Ragnarok. But in India, particularly, the view of time was always cyclical. There's no ultimate beginning, no ultimate ending. There's a constant cycling round and round. So the actual events of history take on less meaning because they're just more of the same. There's just the cycling rather than a story that comes to some kind of climax and conclusion. Another parallel that I could make with the Buddhist cosmological system of destructions that is kind of speculative, but it's interesting. It is interesting to speculate about, is comparing it to the modern scientific view of the worlds. Okay, you've got, first of all, destruction by fire, which encompasses one world system by the heat of the multiple suns. Now, the modern scientific view is that this world will come to an end when the sun runs out of hydrogen and starts burning helium, and it will swell up into a red giant and engulf the inner planets and just burn everything up. There is, in the commentary to the Abhidharmakosha, there's a speculation about how the mechanism of the seven suns could possibly work, and it presents a few different theories. And one of the theories is that the suns won't actually multiply, but there'll be the one and only sun will end up expanding 7 times. So some people in ancient India were already looking at that model as a speculation that we now take as the major idea. There's a story, I can't help but relate this. There's a story that's supposed to be a true story about, there's some famous astronomer was giving a public lecture about the mechanics of the sun, and he mentioned this about how In 5 billion years, the sun will turn into a red giant and burn everything up. And after the lecture, a woman approached him and said, "Sir, I wasn't sure I heard you. Will the sun turn into a red giant in 5 million years or 5 billion years?" And he said, "Billion with a B." She said, "Oh, thank goodness." So there's destruction by fire, which is equivalent to destruction of the solar system. Then the destruction by water. Now, our galaxy is a spiral galaxy with a black hole at the center, and it takes that form of a spiral because it's like when you pull the plug in the bathtub and the water twirls around, like the whole galaxy's going down the drain. It's being sucked into that black hole and will eventually be entirely consumed by the black hole. So that's like destruction by water. We're going down the drain, and that will take in how many is it? 100 million or something suns in the galaxy. That the whole this massive set of world systems will be destroyed all at once. And in the Buddhist text, there's a conception of multiple world systems being grouped. They call them Dasa Sahachakawali, which one modern writer calls that, he uses a made-up word based on Latin, he calls it a chilocosm, and that represents 10,000 world systems, and it's kind of a group that goes down, up and down together. Then you have the biggest destruction is by wind, and that would be like the heat death of the universe, like the whole universe running out of energy, and spreading out from the big. If the Big Bang model is correct, which I now understand is somewhat doubtful, but the idea of the universe will just keep dissipating until all the energy is gone. So, what we can take from this, the whole picture here, is in terms of the Buddhist conception of time, is that they were working with very vast periods of time. This is a very expansive model, and it's also a cyclical model, and it's also a model in which conscious beings are integral. That the new universe, the new world system, I should say, is generated by the karma of the old beings that died, because the karma requires them to have an abode to live in. It forces the appearance of a new world system. So consciousness is central to this whole process. So I'll stop there. That's an overview of cosmological cycles in Buddhism. And I'll go into the questions now. Question: in the past, I gave my mom a bad reputation of Buddhism. Now, when I think in ordaining as a monk someday, she gets angry and cries. Should I renounce my dream of ordaining or not? Thank you. It's kind of hard if your mother is really opposed to it. You try and work on your mother, and just kind of the soft approach, and just try and let her see. Generally, mothers, what they mostly want is for their sons to be happy, and if she understands that's what you want, then she'll eventually go along with it, I think. I've read there are 3 types of Buddhists based on the emphasis of their training in samsara: wisdom, faith, or effort. Is that accurate? Is so that Theravadan or another Buddhist tradition? I think that's from another Buddhist tradition. I don't recall a typology like that for Buddhas. There is typologies for different ways people become enlightened, either through faith or wisdom. Um, but I'm not. I haven't. I haven't seen that applied directly to Buddhas. It's quite likely from the Mahayana tradition. Where do all these numbers come from? 64, 7, 8. Yeah, they're very specific numbers. Um, I think it I would say that there, when these systems are being enumerated, they have a liking for symmetry and an orderly pattern. So a system of 64 can be divided into 8 eighths, so it works well. Ancient Indians loved mathematics. They were very advanced in mathematical science. You see a lot of number play finds its way through into the religious texts. Are the Brahma gods in the first Brahma realm really in 3 different realms? It seems that they all exist in one realm according to the story, but some are just born in a higher caste. No, I think you're maybe confusing two things here. You'll often see in simplified lists of the different realms of Buddhism, there'll be uh, uh, I'm trying to remember how many. There's a multiple number. I think it's like 14 or something different Brahma realms. But when you look at the details, there's really only 4, and there are within each Brahma realm. There's then lower, middle, and high grade Brahmas of that level, but they're in the same realm together. So there's 4 realms of Brahma gods, but there's 3 levels of Brahmas in each realm. And then also included in the called the Rupa Bhumi, which is the realm that includes the Brahma gods. That also includes a couple of other realms that aren't really Brahma gods. There's the realm of the unconscious beings, and then there's the Pure Lands, Sudawasa, which is usually included in the Rupa Loka. Is trying to overcome lust as a layman without experiencing jhana utterly fruitless? Should I instead focusing on continuing to develop dana, sila, and metta? Um, I don't know if you can. I don't know if you can overcome lust uh, without committing to celibacy. The uh, the the better way is to use uh, your precepts. Don't commit sexual misconduct. Be generous and loving in all your relations, uh, and you can abstain from sexuality for periods of time to do retreats. But unless you really want to commit totally to celibacy, you're not going to overcome sensual desire as a layperson. And you should certainly continue to work on dana, sila, and metta. Is the world system cognate to a solar system? It is and it isn't. What I've said is that it's the functional equivalent, but not the structural equivalent. It's equivalent in the sense that it represents one kind of abode of beings that has multiple stations within it, but it's not associated with the stars. You don't, like, we have multiple world systems in modern cosmology, but they're associated with stars, and stars have planets, right? So that becomes a solar system. But in the Buddhist cosmology, the planets are laid out, or the world systems are laid out on a plane. They're not distributed in 3 dimensions through space. They're laid out in 2 dimensions along a plane. And the center of each is Mount Sindaru. And the sun is at one relatively minor body in the system that orbits around Cinnaru. So it's not structurally similar to a solar system, but it serves the same kind of functional purpose as a unit. Next one, is this right understanding? There is no self. Not because there is no self, but there are an infinite amount of selves throughout the continuum of rebirth cycles. I don't know. That I wouldn't phrase it that way. It does seem a little off to me. Like there's no self. There's no self. There's no ultimate point of reference, and there's an infinite number of until one reaches enlightenment. There's an infinite number of existences in samsara, continual rebirth, but there's no self-reference point in any of them. So physical reality is caused by intention or karma. This seems reminiscent of some ideas that come from quantum physics. Yes, I agree. There's the idea in quantum physics of the collapse of the wave function. That reality exists not as a discrete, defined set of things, but only as a mathematical probability, and it only solidifies and becomes an object when consciousness is applied to it as the observer. And then there's a relationship between the observer and the observed, and you have the collapse of the wave function and the occurrence of a discrete object. It seems like this bothered a lot of the scientists when this was this became first evident in the experimental results and in the math. And a lot of them were really did, because a lot of them were hardcore materialists, and they had a hard time admitting consciousness into the equation, but it's really hard to escape. As I heard, the God realm and the demigod realm constitute a single realm. If each realm requires certain vibrations, why is these two opposite realms are existing in the same place or realm? Well, I think maybe what you're referring to here are the Devas and the Asuras. Devas, particularly referencing the Devas of the 33 of Tawatingsa, living on the top of Cinnaru, and the Asuras at the bottom. They would certainly be kind of on the same vibrational level because they interact with each other, and they're definitely real in relation to each other. But they're different. They're polar opposites in many ways. It's not really too unusual. Like, we're on the same vibrational level as humans, as animals. We animals share our same space of existence, but they're not us. They're not human. Next one. There is only one fourth jhana realm for infinite third jhana realms. Does that mean the fourth jhana Brahma gods can perceive all infinite rupa existence at once? Yeah, there is that. That is one of the models. I found when I was examining this that it's really hard to make a definitive map of the Brahma worlds and how they interrelate, because there's at least 3 different models that are proposed in the text that don't really agree with each other completely. But this is one of the models, is that there's only one realm of fourth jhana beings, and an infinite number of third jhana realms underneath them. And then under each third jhana realm, there's 10,000 second jhana realms, and under each of those are 10,000 Brahma, first level Brahmas, and beneath those are 10,000 Chakawalas. Do they perceive all infinite rupa existence at once? I think that's likely that you could say that they do, and that's why they're equanimous. They're steeped in equanimity. How can you get? How could you possibly get uh, upset or emotionally involved in anything when you see the totality of existence? Imagine the world systems beneath them, burning up or coming into being and flowering, and just thousands and thousands and thousands, infinite numbers of them. Do you have a theory about how ignorance and karma manifests itself as a condition for the creation of new world systems? I would say it's a dependent origination that uh, uh, our existence is generated by the karma that we made when we were ignorant in past lives. And that implies in the ordinary run of things that generates you to be reborn, because you need your consciousness. When you die, if you're not fully enlightened, you die with karma still outstanding, and that karma has a force to complete itself. So it's the major impetus for the generation of a new body, for a form for you to exist in. And then what happens at the end of the world is that all these beings, trillions of beings, need a new. Their karma is still out there. It's still like a force that is uncompleted, and it generates these worlds for them to exist in. Just as in an ordinary case, they would generate a single body. Now they're generating whole worlds. Someone asks, "Are there fires in your area?" Okay, um, no, we're lucky here at this. 2 years ago, we had some serious fires in this area, but right now we don't. Knock wood. Hopefully, there are many fires in Canada, but they're not in this location, not in western northwestern Ontario. We're not having a serious fire problem. Can you comment on Brian Rue? He seems to hold some odd beliefs for Dharmachichi. He does, yes. No, I don't really want to get into commenting on him. Leave him aside. Seems like becoming a Pacheka Buddha in the first form realm is the best cause. You get to live almost the length of the versus an arhat. You think this analysis is correct? Yeah, there are arhat brahmas, so that's yeah, that is something that can happen. Uh, your previous talk reminded me of a monk in Thailand tried to prove his power to Thai authority by predicting the lottery exactly and got it right. Does that mean everything is scripted or somewhat scripted? No, I don't know about that. I don't believe everything is scripted in that sense. I don't think it's like predetermined, because there's a force of our free will and our choices that affect things. But there is possible to get some glimpses and visions of the future. That the Buddha even mentions that as one of the types of dreams. So there are patterns that are at play. Uh, is parinibbana better than existence of an arhat? So it's better to pass away fast. I don't know. I don't think at that level you would really care. I don't think it really matters. I think it would depend on your conditions of your life. Like when the Buddha come to the end of his life, he was in a lot of illness and pain, and he kept himself going in order to finish his teaching, but he didn't have any attachment to continue to exist in a bodily form. Could the numbers you spoke of be related to known astronomical cycles? I am thinking of the book's Hamlet's Mill. Yeah, that Hamlet's Mill is a very interesting book. I've read it. Um, I don't. Yeah, and I see where I understand your question, but I don't see the. I I I don't really see a direct connection to the like the precession of the equinoxes in these cycles. It could be someone could work it out and find something that I'm missing, but I don't really see that. I don't think that was the intention. What I get from the Buddhist texts relating to cosmology is that they didn't have a great interest. It's very much unlike the Greeks. They did not have an interest in the stars and cosmic things in the sky. It was all generated from thought experiments and the mind. It wasn't really observational. There was in India an astronomical and astrological sciences, but that doesn't really find its way into the Buddhist texts. A bit off topic, I just watched your older video on Dewas and have heard a lot about palace, chariot, etc. Do you think modern day Dewas are heavenly royals Royce or luxury mountain houses dead? Oh, maybe they drive Teslas. I don't know. I don't know what they. No, the vehicles of the gods are and their abodes are called wamanas, and they're like flying palaces. So they travel around in these flying palaces. So some people have made relations to that to like spacecraft. So I don't know. There's a lot more about wamanas in the pre-Buddhist material as well. Would extraterrestrials make sense in Buddhist cosmology? Yeah, I think they would pretty much be assumed that there would be other beings on other worlds. That I think it would be very surprising if there weren't. Do all arahants get psychic powers? No, that's quite specific. That some arahants develop psychic powers and some don't. And even people who are not arahants can get psychic powers. It's not a direct relationship. Do I think that separating the fourth realm with Anagami and regular fourth jhana form realms a later edition? No, I don't. I think that's pretty much found in the original oldest suttas. And they're quite different. The jhana is not the same as attaining the state of an Anagami. Let's see. By your recommendation, I read the Arahantamaga, Arahatapala. Very interesting. But I have some questions. Firstly, what does the Vinaya say about monks speaking about their attainments? Yeah, well, it's quite clear that Mahabua, in giving that public talk, he broke a Vinaya rule. We're not supposed to talk about their attainments, and he quite explicitly, in some previous talks he kind of hinted very closely about it, but here he was very explicit. He was talking about attaining arahantship and describing it in detail. It's a Pachiti rule. It's not, if he's telling the truth, it's not. It's like a middling rule. It's not like a very serious rule. It only is a Parajika rule if he's lying about it. And I don't think anyone believes that. It may be that he thought he was doing the best, the most useful, compassionate teaching that he could, and if he broke a rule, well, he's already an arahant. What the heck? Just break a rule and do it. So yeah, there's no doubt about it, though. The Vinaya, according to just a straight interpretation of the Vinaya, he broke a rule in doing that. But it's only a middling rule. It's not like one of the most serious rules. Okay, I think I'm going to wrap this up pretty soon. Let me see if there's any one or two more that relate directly to the topic at hand. What happens to the sun when it takes out the world systems? Well, it disappears as well. It burns itself up. Okay, I think I'll wrap it up for there. And that's enough for today, and we'll We'll come back again next week with something different, and I hope you are all well. And I hope there's no forest fires burning you up where you are. Okay, bye now. Okay.